The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Okay, it has been a very busy week, especially here in the state and then also on Capitol Hill. One of the big headlines is Senate Majority Leader Calvin Atkinson stepping down. You were actually up north when this happened, and just kind of give me your reaction facing charges now of laundering campaign funds, essentially.
Yeah, I'm extremely disappointed, and you know, it's unfortunate and it's unacceptable, and that's the statement we put out this week. I mean, we make no bones about this in our organization. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you fall on. We are very consistent on these things. If you do something wrong or you commit a crime, then there has to be consequences for that. And he resigned. He did the right thing. And now we have a lot of business to take care of in the Nevada legislature. And so moving on and going forward and making sure that that business gets taken care of for the people of Nevada is the best action that we can do, and it's the right action that we need to do. And so for me, it was hard to watch, and it was hard to be up there because it was a surprise to all of us, and it was really unfortunate, and it was sad. Yeah,
staff members and members of the caucus didn't learn until roughly the night before that this was coming the next morning. So it was it happened pretty quickly for what had happened. What was your reaction?
Well, to be candid, I don't want to beat a dead horse. You know, I mean, it's over and it's done.
What was right.
You're absolutely correct that he broke the law. They found out it's a federal law. He's gonna pay for it. He should serve time. He will serve time. He will have a fine. I thought that I personally thought going before the legislature and speaking the way he did was a little classy. Again, I'm on the other side of the aisle, but I give him props for that. On the other side, again, that he broke the law, federal law, and he was caught, and now he's going to pay the price for it. I would hope that this would be a lesson to other politicos on either side of the aisle, but the answer is it won't, because I think people always think that I know he didn't get away from it, but I'm smarter and I can do it, and that's why people rob banks and they do things like that. So I wish it was a lesson for others.
And I do feel that 95% of elected officials on both sides of the aisle are there for the right reasons and are following the law and are doing the right thing. And that's why I got into politics, is because I believe that politics it's fun and it's a great system and we get to make real change. But every once in a while, bad things happen on both sides of the aisle. And those folks need to be held accountable. And again, that's what my organization exists for. And we didn't shy away from this on Monday, and we won't shy away from other things when it comes to elected officials, regardless of their party, doing things that are wrong. And we haven't done that before, and we will continue to hold them accountable.
I'm with her on that one.
Should the Senate launch an investigation? Is there a reason to do that?
There's no reason at this point. I think, again, that's kind of beating the dead horse. He did what was right, and he's going to be held accountable in the court of law.
Right. Don't
keep going after the man. He stood up there, he apologized to his colleagues, he left the building. There's nothing else to do. We're moving on. Senator Cannizzaro has assumed the Senate Majority Leader. She's the first female Majority Leader in state history. That is something to be celebrated, and it's important. And so we need to move on from this and get back to business now.
I'm not going to argue with that one. No, because it's absolutely right. I mean, it's a done deal.
And laughing, of course, that you're not going to argue, and that's fair. All right. Moving on. Also, this week, Steve Soroka stepped down. I think about not even 24 hours prior to that happening as well. Just your take there. Now, that's the city council that's facing some drama.
Lie. It's been a week. I'm really also disappointed with him again. This is a person who was elected, who we put there, who we, had trust in as people of Las Vegas, as Nevadans, and he broke that trust. And so, again, he should have resigned. And this is consistent with my organization, because Ruben Kuen's another one. That man should not be running for city council right now. We have been very clear about that. We've been very supportive of the efforts to make sure that we are holding him accountable as he's running for city council. We were critical of him when he was accused of all those things against those women. And again, this is just unacceptable behavior, and it needs to be rooted out no matter what side of the aisle you're on.
Well, we're going to agree on a lot of this stuff here. You know, we knew what Atkinson did, and he's going to be he's been charged, and he's going to be paying for it. We don't know what Soroka did exactly, although there are a lot of rumors out there, and there are a lot of issues in his past about abuse and things like that. So I believe, I'm glad he resigned. He got in for one reason only, and that reason was to stop the Badlands development. And now he's out, which he should be. Coffin's leaving, and so it'll change the makeup of the city council as well. But I think that the voters have a right to know what was behind the Soroka leaving, because what I've heard, and I'm not going to repeat what I've heard, but I've heard certain things, and I think that should come out.
I agree with him. I think we should know.
Now, my question to follow up, how to handle filling the seat. Do you think that the city council should have a special election, or do you think this should be an appointment?
I just don't know if there's time to have a special election while we're in the middle of an election. And so in the past, we've seen it done both ways. They've done an appointment or they've done a special election. I think either way is fine. I think they need to make a decision on what's best for them, on what the elections department can actually handle right now, and then make the decision and go forward. But again, this is also an example of we need to get back to business here, and we need to figure this out quickly. The people should know. You're 100% right. The people should know what's going on, and I've heard rumors as well. But at the end of the day, we shouldn't just be hearing rumors. We should know, and then we should move forward.
And in terms of an election versus an appointment, I think the primary is March 17th, if I'm not mistaken.
It's April 2nd, I believe.
April 2nd, the primary, but then there's a general after that in June, I guess. So if they're going to hold an election, I guess they'll have to hold one in June. I mean, which will make all the sense in the world. I think they ought to do that and give the people the choice to be able to decide who they want in there.
On Thursday, the Nye County Sheriff Sharon Worley joined a couple of other Northern Nevada sheriffs who have now sent letters to Governor Sisolak essentially saying we're not going to be enforcing the background check law. So I think simply your reaction to that.
I think that's hilarious. And they're going to enforce it eventually. We'll take it to the courts. That's fine. But at the end of the day, it's going to get enforced whether they like it or not. And this is just more steps for them to delay the inevitable that we're going to have background checks in this state. It passed by the people. Now it passed the legislature and was signed into law by the governor. And it's going to become the law. And so they can put all the letters out there. They can do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, this is the law now. And they're going to be required to enforce it.
They can put out letters and be defiant for a while, at least, because the law won't take effect for another couple of years, well, another year and a half or so before it actually takes effect. But that being said, it's actively saying we're not going to enforce a state law. What do you think, and can they do that?
Well, first of all, I'm not a big fan of that state law in the first place, but I'm also consistent in another area. I don't believe that that entities, governmental entities on a lower level, should be ignoring what the entities above them have said. The issue of, let's say, sanctuary city, sanctuary state. If we're not a sanctuary state here in the state of Nevada, and all of a sudden, if Nye County or Clark County or one of the counties said, we're going to become a sanctuary state in spite of what the state, we're going to become a sanctuary county in spite of what the state said, if that happened, I would be opposed to that. I mean, you know, if the state passes a law, you don't like it, then you fight it, you try to change it. I don't blame her for saying that on one level. On the other level, again, when the state has passed this law, you better figure a way to try to work with the state on something like this and not just go against it, because that could happen in other areas like sanctuary issues and everything like that. We've got to be consistent, that's all.
Do you see this more of just taking a stand, just putting out there, this is how I feel?
Exactly. This is taking a stand. It's their last stand, frankly. And at the end of the day, elections have consequences. We've talked about that on here. The Democrats won. The Democrats passed this bill. The Democratic governor signed the bill, and now it's the state law. You don't get to pick and choose which laws you're going to enforce just because of the person who's sitting in the governor's office. So at the end of the day, they have a responsibility to do their jobs, and they have a responsibility to enforce the law.
Yeah. You know, again, the law didn't excite me in the least bit, but the sense of consistency, I think, is important.
This week, there was supposed to be a vote on another censure, lack of a better term, for Representative Omar for anti-Semitic comments again. It was delayed. There are revisions now to that paperwork that would go through Congress, and then Representative Clyburn came out today in her defense. Just what's your take on this week's turn of events in this story? How do you see this?
I think it's interesting that the other side is pointing all this out, but yet the other side is the same side that refuses to come out against Nazis, refuses to come out against people holding tiki torches in a town in Virginia, you know, condemning hateful rhetoric that has happened even to this representative. I think it's interesting that now they want to somehow, you know, censure her or hold her accountable for this. Look, the Democratic Party is having a very important conversation within our party. And I believe that it's a conversation that the right should have too, about condemning these types of things or talking about hate or, you know, figuring out how our relationship is with Israel. And I think we need to have those conversations. I think that what she is pointing out is money in politics, talking about our relationship with Israel when we, you know, it's a complicated situation over there with the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. I think those are conversations we have to start having within both parties. And those are conversations we need to start coming to grips with and acting like adults around these issues, because these issues are not going away, they're getting worse. And so for me, I think it's an important conversation that needs to be happening in the party, and I think it should be happening in both parties. And I think things like this just fuel that kind of hateful rhetoric that has, you know, been perpetrated. And frankly, you know, she is a black Muslim woman who has lived an experience that none of us here will ever experience in our lives. And so a lot of this for me is racism directed at her, because she is pointing something out that, frankly, like I said, we all need to grapple with.
Alan, what do you take? I know that you have very strong feelings as well, but how have you taken this week's turn of events?
Well, you know, first of all, I remember when the Republicans came down to Steve King, and they didn't turn around and say, well, look at with the Democrats, what they do. They just took this guy, took him out of committees, and that was the end of that. I like what Democrats are trying to do now, not only you, but others in Congress, trying to say, well, let's look at what Republicans do and what the right does. No, here's the deal. What we're talking about is a woman, yes, who may be a black and a Muslim and she's a female, and she's also has a Nazi mentality, And her attitude is, and this has nothing to do with Israel. This has to do with her discussion about Jew money. About Jew money trying to influence Congress. This is where she's coming from. She has a Nazi mentality, and instead of the Democrats stepping up and condemning her, in particular, because they want to leave her name out of it, they want to mix the issue up. So it's what they want to say is, well, anti-Semitism is bad, but Islamophobia is bad too, and so other forms of racism. These are the same people when they were saying Black Lives Matter, and others said, you know what, all lives matter. They said, no, you can't say all lives matter. We're talking about a specific issue, people who are being abused, and it's Black Lives Matter right now. But now you turn it around, and you have a black woman, Muslim, Nazi, turning around and doing these kinds of things. She happens to be a Democrat, and instead of turning around and condemning her and condemning anti-Semitism, they've got to water the whole thing down. You know what? One, she should have been taken out of the committees that she's on, just like Stephen King was taken out of his committee, and the other women in particular who are backing her up. Clyburn, I know what he said, but the other women in particular, because you have Tlaib, I think that's how you pronounce her name, and some of the others in this Ocasio-Cortez chick, you know, that's the new star. You know, all these people who are backing her up are part of a gang of 5 or 6 like this. I mean, they're all have streaks of anti-Semitism. Is it fair to criticize Israel? Well, it's fair to criticize any country. I've criticized Israel. I criticize this country. Well, it's fair to criticize any country. We are not here in America to tell Israel how to deal with the Palestinian problem and the Palestinians who kill Jews and children and things like that. They're doing what they can to survive as a nation. We have no right to go in and tell them what to do in their nation. They'll handle that. They have the right to come in and tell us what to do in our nation, for that matter. So, I mean, you know, it's blatant Nazism, and the Democrats refuse to be able to call it like it is. Refuse to.
You can, all right, respond to that, but also maybe on a little bit lower level than that. Is there some minimization of going on both ways, either way? Do you think that some of these issues and concerns are being minimized?
I think we need to have a serious conversation in this country about the rhetoric that's going on and the level of rhetoric that's going on, and the ability for specifically the right in this situation to score cheap political points by going after a Muslim woman who is calling out legitimate things. And so for me, I think it's an important thing that the Democratic Party starts to tackle this and grapple with this. And again, this is a party who is, on one hand, calling this woman out for saying legitimate things, and yet doesn't condemn Nazis walking through a neighborhood in Virginia with tiki torches. And their president stands on a stage and says, well, it was terrible on both sides. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. People were ran over there in Virginia, and nobody said a word. Nobody says a word for decades about Steve King. And then suddenly we got to do something about him. And then they're going to, like I said, try to score cheap political points with this. It's just typical. And it's the hypocrisy we see all the time on the right. And it's hilarious to me to sit here and watch Alan get so excited about talking about this, but at the same time, his own party is not actually even talking or tackling these issues, because there's anti-Semitism in the Republican Party. I talked about it on the last show I was on with you, and I pointed out Donald Trump and other people within your party who have said anti-Semitic things. Not once is that a problem, but this woman says something, or this woman calls out Israel, and there's a problem. It's just hilarious to me.
Well, you know, once again, I'm not going to give a pass to a person, because I'm not going to give a pass to someone who is black and a Muslim and a woman because she's a black Muslim woman. Nobody's going to give her a pass on that. The fact that, and this is fascinating, what happens every single time. The fact that when the stuff hits the fan with the Democrat Party, the Democrats always turn and go, yeah, but what about you guys? You know, no, I don't care about you guys. Right now, what we're dealing with is this woman and her Nazi-like mentality. What she said was not right, not appropriate, and it was a complete lie. And she is an anti-Semite, as well as other women in Congress now, perhaps men too, but specifically some other women and Democrats in Congress are anti-Semites, and the idea that the Democrat Party at one time was the bastion of civil rights and kumbaya is now refusing to take a stand because she is a Muslim and a woman, and she's black, and God forbid we condemn her because we're going to seem like racists now. They're not going to even mention her name if they pass this stupid resolution. They're not going to even mention her name, unlike what the Republicans did with Steve King. I don't care how many. I don't care. Finally, schmeinly. Okay. The bottom line is they did it, though. They did it, and Democrats are not doing it. Okay. The Democrat Party is coddling up.
Making us have a real conversation.
Democrats are coddling up to Nazis after all these years that went on. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, Richard Spence is leading your party with David Duke. Okay.
The Democrats are going to wind up adopting the swastika. Watch and see.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Let's leave it there. Thank you both for coming in this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.